Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Please, settle in. Let your body find comfort, and allow your mind to soften. There is nothing to do here, nowhere to be. Simply rest in the gentle cadence of these words, as we explore a quiet truth that has been a guiding light in Buddhism for over 2 millennia. It is a truth about attention, about where we let our awareness rest, and the profound power that simple choice holds over the quality of our entire life. Picture, if you will, a lighthouse. Its purpose is singular and profound, to cast a beam of light through the darkness, guiding ships safely to shore. It does not chase the ships. It does not argue with the storm. It does not lament the fog. It simply stands, unwavering, and shines its light in a steady, rhythmic arc. The ships that choose to align with that beam find their way. Those that ignore it may founder. The lighthouse's power is not in controlling the sea, but in the constancy of its signal. In many ways, the Buddha taught that our mind is meant to be such a lighthouse. Our core purpose, our values, our practice of mindfulness, this is our foundational light. The crashing waves of other people's opinions, the thick fog of gossip, the unpredictable storms of daily drama, these are merely the conditions of the sea. They are not the lighthouse. The suffering begins when we forget our role as the keeper of the light, and instead run down to the rocks to shout at the waves, becoming drenched and battered by every surge. We give the weather our full attention, and in doing so, we extinguish our own guiding beam. This is not merely a philosophy, it is a practical art of living. I remember, years ago, learning to play a simple wooden flute. My teacher's cottage was by a busy road. At first, every passing truck, every horn, every shout from the street would break my concentration. My notes would falter. I'd grow frustrated, blaming the noise for my inability to find the melody. My teacher, an elderly woman with eyes like still ponds, would simply wait for my complaint to subside. Then she'd say, "The sound of the truck is in your ears. The melody is in your breath. Which one are you inviting to live in your heart? Your focus is the invitation." She taught me not to play despite the noise, but to play from a place so centered within the breath and the finger placement that the noise became part of the distant landscape. The trucks didn't stop. But they ceased to be interruptions and became merely the backdrop against which the music was created. I was learning to tend my lighthouse. This is the first, essential key we discover in Buddhist practice. Our peace is not determined by the absence of storm, but by the stability of our light within it. When we fix our awareness on our purpose, whether that purpose is playing a note with clarity, completing a task with care, or simply breathing with intention, the chaotic elements around us lose their power to dictate our inner state. They become phenomena we notice, but do not fuse with. If this idea of cultivating an inner lighthouse calls to you, consider subscribing to Monk's Moon Temple. By joining our community, you are simply giving yourself a gentle reminder to return to this practice, to regularly polish your own light. It is a small, quiet commitment to your own peace. Now, let's consider this from another angle, through a story of a potter. In a village known for its clay, there were 2 apprentices. The first, Kale, worked in an open stall in the village square. He loved the energy, the chatter, the audience. People would stop, watch, and offer comments. "Your rim is crooked," one might say. "The glaze I saw in the city is more vibrant," another would critique. Kale's work became a performance, a reaction. He'd adjust his bowl based on the last comment, only to change it again with the next. His pieces were technically varied, but they had no soul, no consistent vision. They were conversations with the crowd, not conversations with the clay. The second apprentice, Liana, asked to work in the small, dim shed behind the master's house. It was quiet, dusty, lit by a single window. Her world shrank to the wheel's hum, the cool slip of wet clay between her hands, the slow, upward pressure that raised the walls of a vessel. She spent hours centering the clay, the most fundamental step. If the clay is not perfectly centered on the wheel, the whole pot will wobble and collapse. Her entire focus was on that moment, feeling the clay become one with the wheel's spin, a perfect, still axis. The village gossip, the market prices, the latest news, none of it entered the shed. Her pots, when fired, had a serene, inevitable quality. They felt whole, at peace with themselves. The master potter ultimately chose Liana as his successor. Kale was outraged. "She hides from the real world," he protested. The master replied, "Kale, you are listening to the world. Liana is listening to the clay. The potter's truth is in the clay. The world's opinions are just more noise in the square." To create something of integrity, you must first learn what you are listening for. Buddhism invites us into that shed. It doesn't always mean physical solitude, though that can help. It means cultivating that inner sanctuary where your awareness is centered on your fundamental material, your own mind, your intentions, your present moment experience. When you are centered there, the opinions and noises from the village square continue. But they no longer cause your spirit to wobble. You are no longer shaped by every passing comment. You are shaped by the steady, upward pressure of your own purposeful attention. This centering is an active practice. It is the daily, moment-to-month work of returning. Your mind will wander to the square. That is its nature. The practice is in gently, patiently, bringing it back to the feel of the clay, the rhythm of your breath, the quality of your next right action. This is the path. Not a path to a perfect, silent life, but a path to a centered, resilient spirit within the life you have. Having found a sense of that inner sanctuary, that centered point on the wheel, we now turn to one of the most common challenges, the presence of difficult, negative, or so-called toxic people in our lives. It feels like a direct assault on our hard-won peace. How do we apply this teaching when faced with a storm that seems personally directed at our lighthouse? Buddhist wisdom offers a perspective that is both challenging and liberating. It suggests that the toxicity we perceive is often not a fixed substance emanating from another person, but a chemical reaction that occurs when their behavior meets our unguarded, reactive attention. It is like two elements that only create a volatile compound when combined. Your focused awareness is the catalyst. Without it, the other element may just pass by, inert. I witnessed this in a beautiful way with a friend named Sam, who worked in a deeply competitive office. One colleague, in particular, seemed to thrive on undermining others, taking subtle credit for shared work, and spreading seeds of doubt. Sam was initially consumed by it. He'd spend evenings rehearsing conversations, his stomach in knots, his focus hijacked by this one person's shadow. The colleague's toxicity was living rent-free in Sam's mind, rearranging the furniture of his peace. Then, Sam decided to run a marathon. It was a personal goal, unrelated to his job. It required rigorous, daily training. His focus had to shift. His mornings became about his pre-dawn run, his nutrition, his rest. At work, He began to see his tasks as part of his discipline, clean, focused, efficient work to be completed so he could recover for his next run. He didn't ignore the difficult colleague, he simply had less mental and emotional bandwidth to engage with the drama. His attention was on his running form, his pace, his hydration. The colleague's maneuvers didn't stop, but they began to seem small, petty. Like background static on a radio station Sam was no longer tuned to. The volatile compound stopped forming. Sam had changed his element from reactive emotion to purposeful training. The colleague's behavior, deprived of the fuel of Sam's intense focus, fizzled out in its impact. Sam carried his spoonful of water, his training regimen, so carefully that the splashes from others couldn't reach it. This mirrors a profound principle in Buddhism. We do not suffer because of people, we suffer because of our relationship to them, a relationship largely mediated by our own focus. When we stop feeding a dynamic with our obsessive attention, it often loses its power over us. The person may not change, but our experience of them transforms completely. Think of it as having a neighbor with a very bright, garish floodlight that shines directly into your bedroom window. You can spend night after night lying in bed, furious at the light, staring at it, plotting how to complain or retaliate. Your entire night is defined by that intrusive light. Or, you can choose to install a set of good blackout curtains. The floodlight is still on. The neighbor hasn't changed. But now, you can sleep. The curtains are your focused attention on your own rest, your own inner darkness necessary for peace. They are the boundary you create not by controlling the outside world, but by protecting your inner one. The Buddha taught extensively about the cultivation of metta, or loving kindness. This is often misunderstood as having to feel warm and fuzzy about someone who causes pain. That is not it. At its core, metta practice is a radical redirecting of focus. It is the practice of actively wishing for someone's well-being, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the freedom from the poison of resentment. When you focus on generating a wish for their peace, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, you are doing a profound thing. You are taking your spotlight off their irritating behaviors and placing it on a conscious, intentional thought of your own creation. You are no longer a prisoner of their actions. You are the author of your response. You are weaving your own curtain. Let me share a story from an ancient tradition, reimagined. A young warrior traveled to a sage, trembling with anger. A rival has wronged me deeply. He has stolen my honor. Tell me how to defeat him. The sage nodded and said, "Your anger is a fire you carry in your own chest. You wish to throw this fire at your rival to burn him. But tell me, in the throwing, whose hands are burned first?" The warrior looked at his own clenched, shaking fists. "Mine," he whispered. "Exactly," said the sage. "Now, I cannot teach you how to throw the fire. But I can teach you how to set it down. The choice is yours, to stand here with burning hands, or to free them to hold something else." The practice of redirecting focus is the practice of setting the fire down. It doesn't mean the wrong didn't happen. It means you are no longer choosing to be the one who is perpetually on fire. Your hands are now free, to create, to comfort, to build, to tend your own garden. This applies so powerfully in our digital lives. A negative comment online is like a tiny, distant floodlight. We have the choice to stare at it, magnify it, let it illuminate our whole emotional landscape. Or, we can scroll past. We can literally and figuratively place our attention on a different tab, one that contains connection, learning, or beauty. The block and mute functions are modern blackout curtains, tools of wise focus. Using them is not weakness or avoidance, it is the intentional stewardship of your mental environment, a practice the Buddha would have recognized immediately as right effort. So, when you find yourself facing a person or a situation that feels toxic, pause. Ask yourself this gentle question: where is my spotlight right now? Is it illuminating their floodlight, or is it shining on the path I wish to walk? Then, with great kindness to yourself, see if you can turn the beam, even just a degree. Tend to your own breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Recall a personal goal. You are not ignoring the storm. You are simply remembering that you are the lighthouse, and your job is to shine. Let us go deeper now, into the most intimate territory, the relationship with the voice inside our own mind. Often, the most persistent, corrosive toxicity we encounter does not come from an office rival or a stranger online. It is broadcast from a familiar, internal station. The voice of self-doubt. The narrator of past failures. The critic that dissects our every move. This voice can be a constant, low hum of negativity, far more damaging than any external noise because it speaks in our private language, wearing the mask of truth. Buddhism offers a crucial, liberating distinction. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that hears them. ***. This is perhaps one of the most important teachings. We so often identify with the content of our minds, the anxious planning, the regretful rehashing, the self-critical commentary. We believe, I am anxious, I am a failure, I am not enough. But these are simply thoughts passing through the vast sky of your awareness. They are weather patterns, not the sky itself. Imagine sitting by a clear, flowing stream. This stream is the flow of your thoughts. Leaves are constantly floating by on the surface. Some leaves are beautiful, I did well today. Some are ugly and thorny, I'm so stupid for saying that. Your habitual tendency might be to jump into the stream to grab every leaf, especially the ugly ones. You clutch the thorny leaf of self-criticism, and it pierces your hand. You hold it up, examining it, believing it to be a precious truth about you. You are now wet, cold, and in pain, all because of a leaf that was simply floating by. The practice of mindfulness, central to Buddhism, invites you to stay on the bank. To sit comfortably, and to watch the leaves float by. You see the thorny leaf. You acknowledge, there is a thought of self-criticism. But you do not jump in. You let it float into your field of vision, and then you let it float out. Your job is not to curate the leaves. Your job is to remain the calm, dry, observant presence on the bank. The stream flows on. You are the space that contains the stream. I struggled with this for years. My internal critic was a relentless editor, finding fault with every sentence I spoke, every action I took. Meditation felt like sitting by a torrential, muddy river filled with sharp, painful debris. I kept getting swept in. My teacher at the time gave me a simple instruction that changed everything. Stop trying to calm the river. Just find the bank. The bank is the feeling of your seat on the cushion. The bank is the sensation of air at the tips of your nostrils. Whenever you find yourself in the water, struggling with a thought, just feel your seat again. Come back to the bank. It was a physical anchor for my awareness. The critic's voice didn't vanish overnight, but it lost its authority. It became just another sound in the river, not a command from headquarters. Let's explore this with an original story. There was a famous scribe renowned for his beautiful copies of sacred texts. His work was flawless. But he lived in torment, for he had a harsh, internal judge that would scrutinize every stroke of his pen. "That curve is clumsy," the judge would whisper. "The spacing on this line is uneven. The master scribe from the next province would never make such an error." The scribe's joy in his craft was gone, replaced by dread. One day, an old binder visited the workshop. He watched the scribe work, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the frown on his face. After a time, the binder said, "Your letters are perfect. But your spirit is not in them." The scribe confessed his internal struggle. The binder nodded and said, "You are listening to the judge. But who made the judge the master of this workshop? You are the scribe. Your only master is the text before you. The judge is just a noisy visitor in the corner. You have been serving him tea and hanging on his every word. Stop serving him. Serve the text. Pour all your tea of attention into the shape of the next letter, not into the critic's cup." The scribe began to practice this. When the critic spoke, he would mentally say, "Thank you for your opinion," and then pour his focus back into the physical sensation of the quill in his hand, the flow of ink, the sacred word he was forming. Slowly, the critic's voice grew quieter, not because it was defeated, but because it was no longer being fed. The scribe had relocated the seat of his authority from the critic's commentary to the direct experience of his craft. He had found the bank of the stream. This is the practice of samadhi, or concentrated focus, in Buddhism. We choose a single, simple object, the breath, a candle flame, a repeated phrase of kindness, and we train the mind to return to it. This is not an escape from thought. It is weight training for the mind's attention. Every time you notice you've been carried away by the current of self-criticism and you gently return to the breath, you are strengthening your ability to reside on the bank. You are building the muscle that says, "I am not that thought. I am the awareness that knows the thought." So tonight, if you hear that familiar, critical voice, experiment. Don't argue with it. Don't believe it. Simply notice it. Say to yourself, "Thinking is happening." Then, feel your body. Feel the weight in your chair. Feel the air moving in and out. You have just moved from being lost in the stream to sitting on the bank. In that small shift, immense freedom is found. You have taken back the spotlight from the inner critic and pointed it at the simple, undeniable fact of your present moment existence. We've begun to find our center, to manage external noise and internal criticism by mastering our focus. Now, let's see what blossoms from that stable ground. When we are not constantly buffeted by reactivity, what kind of presence can we offer to the world? Buddhism teaches that from the soil of calm, focused awareness, the natural flower that grows is compassion, not as a strained obligation, but as an effortless overflow. Consider a nurse in a busy emergency room. The environment is pure chaos, alarms, pain, urgency, fear. If the nurse's attention is pulled into every sound, every crisis, every emotional wave, she will be overwhelmed, burned out, and ineffective. Her focus must be laser-like. On this patient's pulse. On this medication's dosage. On this sterile procedure. That profound focus is not cold or uncaring. It is the very vehicle of her compassion. By filtering out the overwhelming noise and placing her awareness precisely on the task that alleviates suffering right now, she becomes a conduit for genuine care. Her calm is not indifference, it is a deep, focused love in action. Her spoonful of water is her clinical skill, and she carries it steadily through the hurricane of human distress. This illustrates a beautiful Buddhist principle: clear seeing precedes compassionate action. When our mind is clouded by our own reactions, judgments, and distractions, we cannot truly see the other person or their need. We see our own story about them. Focus clears the lens. It allows us to perceive what is actually happening, and from that perception, the appropriate, kind response often arises naturally, without heroic effort. I learned this from a taxi driver in a sprawling, frenetic city. He was the calmest person I'd ever encountered in traffic. Horns blared, others swerved aggressively, pedestrians jaywalked. He would simply adjust. A gentle brake, a smooth lane change, a patient wait. I remarked on his equanimity. He laughed and said, "Oh, I used to yell, curse, get ulcers." Then I realized something. My job is not to fix this traffic. My job is to get you to your destination safely and comfortably. That is my little circle. When I focus only on that, on smooth steering, on anticipating the car ahead, on a comfortable temperature for you, all the rest becomes like a movie playing outside the window. Interesting, sometimes intense, but not my business. My business is in here. His focused purpose created a bubble of well-being for his passenger in the midst of chaos. That, itself, was a quiet act of compassion for a stranger. The Buddha's teachings on right livelihood encourage us to find work that does no harm and ideally alleviates suffering. But we can bring this taxi driver philosophy to any job, any interaction. What is the core of your task in this moment? Can you place your full attention there? In doing so, you become a point of peace and competence, and that energy touches everyone around you. You stop adding to the collective noise and start contributing to a collective calm. Let me tell you a story about a bridge keeper. He lived in a small house by an old, wooden suspension bridge that spanned a powerful river. Villagers from both sides crossed constantly. They came with their burdens, their arguments, their joys, their gossip. As they crossed, many would stop at his house to complain. "The planks on your bridge are creaking," one would gripe. "The river is too loud underneath," another would shout. "Someone from the other side was rude to me," a third would fume. For years, the bridge keeper tried to solve every complaint. He tightened planks, tried to imagine sound barriers, mediated disputes. He was exhausted and the complaints never ceased. One day, a wandering monk crossed the bridge. Seeing the keeper fatigued, he asked about his work. After hearing the tales, the monk said, "Your duty is not to silence the river or to soften the footsteps of every traveler. Your duty is to ensure the bridge is sound. To check its cables, to oil its joints, to replace rotten wood. That is your circle. The sounds, the complaints, the moods of the travelers, these are the weather of the bridge. Tend the bridge. Let the weather be." The bridge keeper took this to heart. He stopped listening to the content of the complaints and focused only on the integrity of the structure. He greeted travelers politely but kept his mind on his inspections. A funny thing happened. The bridge became safer and more reliable than ever. And the travelers, feeling the stable, well-kept path beneath their feet, seemed to bring fewer complaints with them across the water. By focusing on his true purpose, maintaining the means of connection, he had indirectly addressed the root of many troubles. He had not absorbed their chaos, he had provided a steadier foundation for it all to flow across. In your life, you are often the bridge keeper. Your focused mind, your calm heart, your ethical action, this is the bridge you maintain. Others will bring their noise, their drama, their demands onto it. You cannot control that. But you can ensure your bridge is strong. You can focus on oiling the joints of your patience, checking the cables of your integrity, replacing the rotten wood of old resentments. When your structure is sound, people can cross from their suffering towards a better state, and their weight will not cause you to collapse. Your compassion becomes structural, not merely emotional. This is the gift of a focused life to the world. It doesn't mean you never help, never listen, never act. It means you help from a place of strength, not depletion. You listen from the bank of the stream, not from the turbulent water. You act from a clear seeing of what is needed, not from a frantic reacting to every stimulus. You become a true sanctuary, not because you have no storms, but because your foundation is unshakable. We've built a sense of inner stability and seen how it leads to compassionate presence. But life guarantees that this stability will be tested, not just by external people, but by our own stumbles, failures, and deep disappointments. What happens to our focus when the ground beneath us seems to give way? When we are the authors of our own pain. Buddhist wisdom does not shy away from this. In fact, it meets it with clear-eyed tenderness. A core teaching is that of anicca, or impermanence. All things arise and pass away, successes, relationships, states of health, and yes, our own competent self-image. Failure is not an aberration in the human experience, it is an integral part of the flow. Our suffering around it comes from our rigid focus on the story of what should have been, instead of a clear focus on what is now, and what can be done. Imagine a master weaver working on an immense, complex tapestry. For months, she works from a detailed cartoon, her focus on the emerging picture. One day, she makes a significant error. A whole section's colors and pattern are wrong. Her first reaction might be devastation. She might stare at the flaw, ruminating on the wasted time, the ruined vision. She might be tempted to abandon the entire piece. This is the mind fixated on the departed plan. But if she can steady her breath and shift her focus from the lost picture to the actual threads in her hands, something else becomes possible. She looks closely at the mistake. She sees new color interactions she hadn't planned. She notices a texture created by the unintended weave. With a flexible mind, she begins to ask, what can this become? How can I incorporate this new reality into the whole? The flaw ceases to be a stop sign and becomes a fork in the creative road. The tapestry that finally emerges may be more unique, more resilient, and more deeply hers than the original perfect plan could ever have been. Her focus shifted from judgment of the past to creative engagement with the present. This is the application of mindfulness to failure. We cannot change the misplaced thread. But we have absolute sovereignty over where we place our attention in its aftermath. Do we focus on the narrative of shame and regret? Or do we focus on the raw materials of the present moment, our breath, our next small action, the new possibilities that have accidentally been revealed? I have a friend, a brilliant carpenter, who once made a catastrophic error on a commissioned piece, a beautiful cabinet. He mismeasured and cut the central panel drastically too small. The expensive wood was ruined. He called me in despair, convinced his reputation was finished. After the initial storm passed, I asked him, "What's left of the wood?" He described the fragments. "Forget the cabinet that's gone," I said. "Look only at the pieces that remain. What can they be?" Grudgingly, he began to see. The large pieces became a series of elegant, small jewel boxes. The slender strips became inlay for another project. The catastrophe became the source for a new, highly praised line of his work. He told me later, I had to stop looking at the ghost of the cabinet in my mind. I had to look at the real wood on my bench. The ghost was killing me. The real wood showed me the way forward. The Buddha taught that clinging to plans, to self-images, to desired outcomes, is the root of suffering. When we fail, we are often clinging fiercely to the ghost of our success. The practice is to open our hands, to let the ghost go, and to see, with clear, focused attention, what is actually in our hands now. It might be fragments. It might be lessons. It might be humility. It is the real material of our next step. Let's consider a story from the natural world. A forest fire is a terrifying event of destruction. It consumes everything in its path. In the immediate aftermath, the landscape is ash and charcoal, a scene of utter failure for the ecosystem. But if we focus only on the blackness, we see only death. However, certain pine cones, like those of the lodgepole pine, only open and release their seeds when exposed to the intense heat of a fire. The fire's devastation creates the necessary condition for a new generation to take root, one that grows in soil fertilized by ash. The forest that returns is often healthier and more diverse. The failure was part of a larger cycle of renewal. Your personal fires, failed projects, broken relationships, lost opportunities, can feel like total devastation. The practice is to have the patience and the focus to look for the pine cones in the ashes. What seeds of wisdom were released by this heat? What new growth might this cleared space allow? This isn't naive positivity. It is a courageous redirecting of your gaze from the smoke to the soil. So, when you encounter failure, big or small, practice this shift. Acknowledge the pain, the disappointment. Feel it fully. Then, gently ask, setting aside the story of what I lost, what is actually here now? What is the next, tiny, physical action I can take? It might be cleaning up the workshop. It might be making a humble apology. It might be simply standing up and taking a walk. Place your spotlight on that action. In doing so, you cease to be a statue mourning a ruin, and you become a gardener tending the scorched earth, watching patiently for the first green shoot. You are back in the flow of life, no longer trapped in the frozen story of its interruption. We've navigated internal and external storms. Now, let's address the pervasive, ambient condition of our age, the constant stream of information, the endless to-do list, the feeling of being perpetually behind, buzzed, and busy. This isn't a single toxic person, it's a toxic atmosphere. How does the focused, lighthouse mind survive and find peace here? The Buddha lived in a slower time, but the core challenge of a distracted, craving mind is timeless. Today, the monkey mind he described has been given a supercomputer and a high-speed internet connection. Our attention is the most valuable commodity, and it is under siege from 1,000 cleverly designed directions. The feeling of being overwhelmed is not a personal failing, it is the logical result of a mind trying to drink from a fire hose. Buddhist practice in the digital age becomes the practice of conscious consumption, not just of food or goods, but of attention itself. It asks us to become curators of our mental input. Think of your mind as a pristine, ancient library. Every tweet, news alert, email notification, and streaming video is like someone rushing in and tossing a new, often crinkled and sensational, pamphlet onto the reading table. If you try to read every pamphlet as it lands, you will never find the deep, wise, silent texts that line the shelves. You'll be in a state of permanent, shallow frenzy. The practice is to periodically close the library doors. To post a sign that says, "Quiet hours." During these hours, you are not acquiring new pamphlets. You are sitting with one single, chosen volume. That volume might be your breath. It might be the task of washing dishes, feeling the warm water. It might be a walk where you notice only the colors of 3 different leaves. You are practicing deep reading of the present moment, instead of skimming the chaos. I experienced the power of this during a mandatory 10-day silent retreat where all devices, books, and even eye contact were surrendered. For the first 3 days, my mind was the fire hose, spraying fragmented thoughts, memories, and mental to-do lists with desperate force. It was agony. But with no new input, the torrent gradually lessened. By day 7, the library was quiet. I could read the sensation of a breeze on my skin for what felt like hours. I could follow a single ant on its journey across the path with total fascination. The richness and depth of that simplified world was staggering. I wasn't deprived, I had been restored to a natural, focused state that constant stimulation had buried. I had remembered how to tend a single, deep well instead of scrambling between 1,000 puddles. You don't need a retreat to begin. You can declare a library quiet hour today. It might be 20 minutes. Put your phone in another room. Sit. Or do one simple chore with full attention. When your mind pulls you toward the mental pamphlet pile, I should check, what if, I need to, gently return to your chosen volume, the breath, the dishes, the walk. You are not avoiding responsibility. You are strengthening the mental muscle required to meet responsibility from a place of calm, not panic. Let's frame this with an original parable. In a city that worshipped speed, there was a last, old-style watchmaker. His shop was a tiny oasis of silence amidst the skyscrapers and rushing crowds. Young, efficient executives would bring him their grandfather's complex mechanical watches, frustrated that he took weeks for a repair they needed done in hours. "I must have it faster," they'd demand. The watchmaker would look up, his single eyepiece glinting. "The watch," he'd say softly, "is not aware of your hurry. Its springs and gears obey laws of physics and patience. To repair it, I must enter its time, not yours. You may wait, or you may take it to someone who will slap it together. It will break again." Those who waited received back a watch that kept perfect time for another generation. The watchmaker's focus was absolute. He was not in the city's time. He was in the watch's time. His workshop was a temporal sanctuary. Our mind, like that fine watch, is a delicate mechanism. It cannot be repaired, understood, or enjoyed when we are forcing it to operate at the frantic, fractured pace of the digital cityscape. We must grant it periods where it can tick in its own natural rhythm. We must enter its time. The Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path includes right effort and right mindfulness. In our context, right effort is the conscious decision to protect periods of focused attention. Right mindfulness is the gentle act of returning to that focus when the city noise pulls us away. It is saying, for the next 30 minutes, I am in the watchmaker's shop. The emails, the news, the social updates, they can wait in the lobby. This practice creates a revolutionary shift. You stop being a passive receiver of the world's frantic pace and become an active creator of your own rhythm. You realize you don't have to attend every mental party you're invited to. You can RSVP no to the chaos and yes to the quiet work on your bench. The overwhelm begins to subside not because the world changed, but because you changed your relationship to its clock. We've learned to protect our focus from the world's frenzy. Now, let's bring this quality of attention to our most precious ground, our relationships with family, partners, and close friends. Here, the distractions aren't just digital, they are emotional, historical, and deeply personal. We bring our unfocused, reactive minds home, and we often donate our worst attention to those we love most. How does Buddhist focus apply in the heart of the hearth? The core teaching here is about presence. Not just physical presence, but the quality of undivided awareness. A parent playing with a child while scrolling on a phone is physically present but mentally absent. A partner listening to a story while mentally rehearsing their work presentation is offering a fragment of themselves. We have all done this. Love, in its deepest sense, is attention. It is the spotlight of our care fully illuminating the other person, making them feel truly seen and heard in that moment. Buddhism, with its emphasis on mindfulness, provides the tools for this kind of loving attention. It's not about having long, philosophical discussions with your toddler or your spouse. It's about giving them the gift of your whole mind, even for 5 minutes. During that time, your purpose is not to fix, advise, or judge. Your purpose is simply to be with them, to witness their reality. I think of my grandfather in his final years. His world had shrunk to his armchair, the garden outside his window, and the family who visited. Conversations could be repetitive. It was easy to nod while thinking of other things. One afternoon, I decided to try an experiment. I would sit with him for 30 minutes and my only task would be to notice. To notice the pattern of the veins on his hands. To truly listen to the timbre of his voice, not just the content of his familiar story. To watch how the light changed on his face. I put my phone away and settled in. Something shifted. The ordinary became profound. In my full attention, I saw not just an old man telling an old tale, but a whole life, a universe of experience, contained in that moment. He must have felt it too, because he grew quieter, more peaceful. When I left, he held my hand and said, "Thank you for coming." It felt different. He wasn't thanking me for the visit, he was thanking me for truly arriving. This is the practice, to arrive, completely, in the presence of a loved one. Your spoonful of water is your undistracted awareness. You carry it into the interaction, careful not to spill it into the past, an old grievance, or the future, your next task. You hold it steady, and in that steady holding, you offer a pure refreshment. Let's envision a story about a family kitchen. A mother is preparing dinner. Her teenager slumps in, radiating teenage gloom. The mother's automatic mind might jump to interrogation: what's wrong? Advice: you should, or dismissal: just cheer up. These are reactions, often spilling the water of her peace. But imagine if she simply continues chopping vegetables, but shifts her focus. She says nothing. She just allows her teenager to exist in the space, feeling the gloom, without needing to fix it. Her own attention is on the crisp sound of the knife, the smell of the herbs, and a silent, warm acknowledgement of her child's presence. She is holding a space. She is the deep lake, allowing the storm cloud of teenage emotion to pass over without being churned by it. After a few minutes of this non-reactive, focused calm, the teenager might sigh and say, "Mom, this really stupid thing happened today." The door opens not because she pried it, but because she provided a safe, attentive silence for it to open on its own. The Buddha taught about Sangha, or spiritual community. The first Sangha is often our family. We can make our home a mini-**Sangha** not by being perfect, but by practicing this quality of focused, non-reactive presence with each other. It means during a conflict, focusing on really hearing the other's feeling rather than crafting your rebuttal. It means during a shared meal, focusing on the taste of the food and the company, not the television. It is small, daily architecture of attention that builds a house of peace. Another tale: two friends, Leo and Maya, went hiking every Sunday. For years, Leo spent the hikes talking incessantly, about his work, his plans, his ideas. Maya listened, but often felt drained. One Sunday, Leo's life fell apart. A project failed, a relationship ended. On the hike, he was silent. For the first time, Maya truly saw the trail, the moss on the north side of the trees, the way the light filtered through the canopy. She heard the bird calls. She also saw the profound pain on her friend's face. She didn't speak. She just walked beside him, her attention fully on the shared path and his silent suffering. At the summit, Leo finally spoke, his voice thick. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Maya asked. "For not trying to fill the silence," he replied. "I could feel you were here. That was enough." Maya had given the gift of her focused presence, which was far more powerful than any words of advice. She had been the steady trail beneath his unstable feet. In your relationships today, experiment. Choose one interaction. Put away all devices. Look into the person's eyes. Listen to their words as if they were the most important thing you'll hear all day. Feel your own breath as you listen. Your only job is to receive them. You will be amazed at how this simple, focused presence can transform an ordinary moment into one of deep connection. It turns out, love is not just a feeling. It is a quality of attention. Let's journey further. We've applied focus to our inner world, our work, our modern chaos, and our intimate bonds. Now let's cast our gaze to the horizon of a life. What is the legacy of a focused life? Not in terms of monuments or wealth, but in terms of the subtle energy, the vibration of peace, we leave in our wake. Buddhism often speaks of karma not as a cosmic scorecard, but as the natural law of cause and effect. Our intentional actions plant seeds that will bear fruit. Our most fundamental action is the direction of our attention. What fruit does that bear in the world after we are gone? Consider a stone dropped into a still pond. The stone is your focused action, a word of kindness spoken from a calm center, a task done with integrity, a moment of patient listening. The ripples are the effects, seen and unseen, that spread out from that point, touching shores you may never visit. A life of scattered, reactive attention is like throwing many small, jagged stones in agitation. The water becomes choppy, conflicted, chaotic. A life of steady, purposeful focus is like dropping a single, smooth stone at a time. The ripples are clear, concentric, and they travel far, creating a pattern of calm that others can feel long after the stone has settled to the bottom. I think of my first meditation teacher. He was not famous. He wrote no books. He lived in a simple apartment. But his presence was like a deep, clear bell. When you were with him, your own internal noise would gradually settle just by proximity to his calm. He focused on his practice, on tending his small garden, on being fully present for whoever sat across from him. Years after his passing, I find myself in difficult situations and think, how would he hold his attention right now? And that memory alone, the ripple of his focused presence, guides me back to my center. His legacy was not in things he left behind, but in the quality of attention he inspired in others. He planted seeds of peace that are still growing in minds he never knew. This is the true, enduring wealth described in Buddhist teachings, the wealth of virtue, concentration, and wisdom. These are transmitted not through lectures, but through embodied, focused living. You become a living example of the peace that is possible, and that example is contagious. Imagine an ancient bell in a forgotten temple tower, covered in vines and dust. For a century, no one has struck it. Then, one clear morning, a single, perfect strike from a visitor's mallet connects. Boom! The sound wave rolls out over the sleeping valley. It touches everything. It vibrates in the dew on the grass, in the leaves of the trees, in the bones of the animals. It doesn't demand anything. It simply rings, because it is a bell's nature to ring when struck truly. Then it fades. But the air itself is different. It has carried that note. Your life, when you live it from a focused, purposeful center, is that strike. Your actions, words, and simple presence are the note. You may never know how far it travels, whose heart it stirs from sleep, what hidden harmony it triggers in a stranger's life. The Buddha's own legacy is the sustained note of his enlightenment, still vibrating 2,500 years later, still guiding people home. You don't need to be a Buddha to have this effect. You just need to polish your own bell and strike it true, again and again, with your focused intent. Let me share a final, encompassing story. In a coastal village, there was an old man who walked the beach every sunrise. His ritual was simple. He would find the plastic debris washed up overnight, bottles, bags, fragments of fishing nets, and he would fill one small sack with it to carry to the recycling bin in town. Children would run past him to play. Fishermen would launch their boats, focused on their catch. Tourists would seek the perfect photo. The old man just walked, with his eyes on the sand, picking up piece after piece. It seemed a futile task against the vast ocean. One little girl, curious, asked him, "Old man, why do you do this? The ocean will just bring more tomorrow." He didn't look up from retrieving a tangled piece of rope. "The ocean," he said, "will do what the ocean does. That is its nature. My nature is to care for this stretch of sand. This is my stretch. I am not cleaning the whole ocean. I am being responsible for my attention." He placed the rope in his sack. "And look," he said, pointing to his footprints in the wet sand. "See how clean it is where I have walked." Years later, that girl, now a woman, became a marine biologist leading a major conservation project. In an interview, she was asked what inspired her path. She told the story of the old man. "He taught me that you don't fix the whole ocean. You tend to your attention. You clean your stretch. And if enough people do that, with steady focus, the whole beach becomes clean." His focus was so narrow, one sack, one morning, but its ripple found me and changed my life's direction. He is gone now. But I still see his clean stretch of sand every time I choose where to place my own effort. This is the legacy of a focused life. It is a clean stretch of sand that you leave behind you. It is the ripple of your calm that touches future generations. It is the note of your bell that lingers in the air. You may never see the full effect. But in Buddhism, we trust the natural law of cause and effect. A mind focused on peace, on kindness, on purpose, inevitably sows seeds of peace, kindness, and purpose in the world. That is a legacy that never decays. We have traversed many landscapes, internal, social, and legacy. Now, let's gather the tools. How do we actually live this? How do we move from understanding to embodiment? Buddhism is ultimately a practice, a set of mental exercises as real as lifting weights for the body. Here is a simple, sustainable framework for cultivating your focus, your inner lighthouse, every single day. First, the morning anchor. Before you reach for your phone, before the day's demands claim you, gift yourself 5 minutes of intentional focus. Sit on the edge of your bed, or in a chair. Feel your body. Feel the air entering and leaving your nostrils. That's all. Your mind will race. That's fine. Each time you notice it has wandered, gently return to the feeling of the breath. You are not trying to achieve blankness. You are practicing the muscle of return. You are setting the tone. Today, I am the master of where I place my attention. It begins here, with this breath. This is your daily centering of the clay on the potter's wheel. Second, choose your spoonful of water for the day. Identify one primary intention. Not a to-do list item, but a quality of attention. It could be, today, I will focus on listening fully. Or, today, my focus is on completing tasks without rushing. Or, today, I will notice when I am reacting and pause for one breath. Write it down. Put it where you'll see it. This is your spoonful of water. Your job is not to control the whole monastery, but to carry this one intention without spilling it through reactivity. Third, institute library quiet hours. Block out 2 or 3 short periods, even 10 to 15 minutes, in your day where you shut the doors to new input. No phone, no email, no news. During this time, do one thing with full absorption. Drink a cup of tea and only drink tea. Feel the cup, smell the aroma, taste each sip. Or look out the window and name 5 colors you see. This is you entering the watchmaker's shop, restoring your mind to its natural, unhurried rhythm. Fourth, practice the bank of the stream when negativity arises. When you hear a critical inner voice or encounter an external provocation, pause. Literally say to yourself, bank. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat in the chair. You have just moved from being in the turbulent water of the thought to sitting on the stable bank of your awareness. From here, you can choose your response, not be hijacked by a reaction. Fifth, the evening reflection. Just before sleep, spend 2 minutes reviewing the day, not in terms of achievements, but in terms of focus. Where did my spotlight shine brightest? When did I spill my spoonful of water? Do this without judgment. It is simply intelligence gathering for tomorrow's practice. Then, feel your body sinking into the bed, and focus on the darkness behind your eyelids, letting go of the day. This framework is not about adding more to your busy life. It is about changing the quality of your engagement with the life you already have. It is about becoming a connoisseur of your own attention. Let's solidify this with a final, practical story about a modern household. The Gupta family felt perpetually fragmented. Parents stressed about work, kids glued to screens, dinners were silent or fractious. They felt like ships passing in a noisy night. They decided on one tiny experiment, focused dinner. The rule was simple. No devices at the table, and for the first 5 minutes of the meal, no one could speak about logistics, problems, or schedules. They had to use their senses. These carrots are really sweet, a child might say. I like the sound of the rain outside, the other might offer. That was it. Just 5 minutes of sensory, present moment focus. It felt awkward at first. But gradually, those 5 minutes became an oasis. The focus on taste, sound, and sight forced their minds out of the past and future and into the shared present. The conversations that followed became softer, more connected. The focused dinner didn't solve their external problems, but it built a small, steady lighthouse in their home. The chaotic sea still raged outside, but for that half hour, they were all aligned with the same calm beam. It started with a single, shared intention, a family spoonful of water. Your practice can start just as small. Choose one of the 5 steps. Try it for a week. You are not striving for perfection. You are practicing, like a musician scales. Every time you return from distraction to your breath, you play the note of homecoming. Every time you pause before reacting, you compose a bar of peace. This is the music of a focused life. It is played one note, one breath, one intention at a time. And so we arrive here, at the close of our extended meditation together in Monk's Moon Temple. We have journeyed through many metaphors, lighthouses, potter's wheels, streams, libraries, bells, and stretches of sand. But all these are merely fingers pointing at the same moon, the luminous, liberating power of your own focused attention. The Buddha's great gift was to map the territory of the mind and show us that freedom is not found in changing the world to suit our preferences, but in changing our relationship to the world through wise attention. Where you place your awareness is where you live. If you place it in the regrets of yesterday and the anxieties of tomorrow, you live in a phantom land of suffering. If you place it firmly in the raw, real, immediate experience of this breath, this step, this intentional act, you live in the only place where life actually occurs, the present moment. And in that present moment, when not clouded by reactive stories, a natural peace and compassion are revealed to be your true nature. This is not a passive state. It is the most dynamic way to live. It is to engage with the world from a place of unshakable inner clarity. The toxic person becomes a lesson in patience. The failure becomes a teacher of resilience. The busyness becomes a canvas for practicing presence. The loved one becomes a sanctuary for your undivided care. You stop being a cork bobbing on the ocean of circumstance and become the skilled sailor, using the rudder of your attention to navigate any waters. As we part ways in this digital space, carry this simple question as your compass: what am I cultivating with my focus right now? Are you cultivating anxiety by feeding on worry? Are you cultivating resentment by rehearsing a grievance? Or are you cultivating peace by feeling your breath? Are you cultivating kindness by listening fully? Are you cultivating purpose by doing the next small thing with care? You are the gardener of your mind, moment by moment. You cannot blame the weeds if you are the one watering them with your attention. But the wonderful, hopeful truth is this: the moment you notice you are watering a weed, you can stop. You can turn the watering can of your awareness to a flower. That power of redirection is always available, in this very instant. It is the essence of mindfulness, the heart of Buddhist practice. Thank you for allowing Monk's Moon Temple to be a part of your journey. May you walk gently through this world. May your inner lighthouse shine steadily, guiding you and all those you encounter toward the shore of peace. May you carry your spoonful of water with grace, and may your focused life leave a clean, beautiful stretch of sand behind you. Good night, and be well.